Hello student, I am Professor Devashish Bose, Head, Department of Criminology and Forensic Science, Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Vishwavidyalaya, Sagar, Madhya Pradesh. Today I am going to present a lecture of BA first semester on the unit Introduction to Criminology, and the topic is Etiology of Crime, Part 1, Biological Theories of Crime, which has been prepared by Dr. Deepak Gupta, a PhD in Criminology and a guest faculty at Department of Criminology and Forensic Science, Dr. Hari Singh Gaur Vishwavidyalaya, Sagar. So let's start our discussion while taking a look at what we are going to learn today in Etiology of Crime, Part 1, that is Biological Theories of Crime. We will start with Module 1, Introduction, Module 2, Biological Theories of Crime, Module 3 will be on Genetics and Criminality, Module 4 will be Constitutional Determinants, and finally Module 5 will be our conclusion. What is etiology? Etiology is mostly used as a medical or psychiatric term. For example, it might be important to know that etiology of a criminal defines mental disease or defect. Etiology means the cause or set of causes. Causation is a hugely important concept in criminal law, but it is always simply referred to in United States of America, if we talk about, is jurisdiction as cause, simple cause, or causation, not etiology. An important function of causation is to define criminal offences. For example, in most murder cases, that is a common example, the prosecution will have to prove that the defendant intentionally or with premeditation caused the death of another person. This you have to prove. Causation is often a critical issue in homicide cases. The jury will be given a definition of cause in a jury instruction. Cause should be proved, cause should be told. Without cause there is no, cause means it's the intention we are talking about. These instructions vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but generally a defendant's action do not have to be the sole cause of the death. On the other hand, however, it is usually not sufficient for the prosecution to prove merely that, but for the defendant's action, the death would not have occurred. This is very important. Usually, the prosecution must prove that the defendant's action were the proximate cause or a substantial factor in causing that death. This we have to prove. The field of criminology systematically studies the cause of crime. The explanation for crime are not simple. We live in a complex society and the cause of crime are as complex as the society itself. Psychologists argue that in order to do something about the crime problem, we must first understand the cause. The cause, you have to go to the root cause, even at your home. For example, my dear student, if we have some problem, we go to the root cause. Suppose suddenly we find that something is not going. Suppose in the television set we want to watch our favorite TV serial and it's not coming. You will find the cause. You won't start cursing. You will find the cause. What was the reason? What is the reason that this program is not been telecast? So here also we have to go to the cause. It is the main root, the essence of our criminological society or the study. Their aim are in conformity with that of criminologists. The question arises, why does crime happen? There should be some reason. Again, I am talking about the cause. Why? Why means going to the cause. What motivates people to commit illegal acts? Several theories are advocated to answer these questions. For example, in case of theft, the biological explanation says that the thief had bad genes, and the psychological explanation may maintain that he has a personal defect. So look, two aspects, biological and psychological. Biological is bad genes. So it's a genetic problem, it's from ancestor it's coming out. It's a theory kind of thing. And psychological, if we talk about, it's a character we go to. Likewise, the sociological explanation may argue that the person got in with a bad crowd. As we in common, if I talk in Hindi, we say, बुरे संगत में चले जाना. It's again going into the bad crowd, this kind of thing. These kind of explanations led to different kind of theory. Biological theories of crime, psychological theories of crime, sociological theories of crime, socio-psychological theories of crime. These are the different theories which evolved to explain why a person turns to be criminal, why he is committing a crime. So everything has to be proved by theory. However, no single theory can possibly be applicable to all illegal acts and actors, and therefore an evaluation of the limitation of each theory is appropriate. The use of biological determinants in explaining crime clearly contrasts with the sociological approach. Obviously, biology is something different, sociology is something different. So, it has to contradict with each other. So, now coming back, the biological emphasis may seek to discover common physical characteristics among criminals. Now, we will be matching the criminals, that what are the biological resemblance between all the criminals. But more often, this perspective focuses on genetic inheritance, on chromosomal abnormalities, on psychological irregularities, or on constitutional, that is body type, determinants. Biological explanations are appealing for reasons, because we love to hear biological, because if we say his physique is like this, that's why. If we see a strong muscle person, we say he is a bodybuilder, or he is a wrestler, or he is a boxer, or he has an athlete body. We assume. When we ask him, he says, no, I just work in the office, or I am a software engineer. You will say, taken aback. So it's appealing always. So why? Why they are appealing? Because they are simple. As I've said, simple. They attempt to distinguish clearly between the criminal and the non-criminal. For example, some people are tempted to believe that criminals look different from the rest of the world. Even we say, we're looking at a person, we say, this person doesn't look nice. He might be criminal, be aware. But poor guy, he could be one of the administrative officers or one of the top bureaucrats. So this is the... So now we come to the historical background. With the development of scientific research during 19th century, some French doctors were successful in establishing that the real cause of criminality lay in anthropological feature of the criminals. So you know what are anthropological features? So anthropological features are the structure of the body. It deals with the bones, our structure. Clear? Because you are not the student of biology, so you should know that anthropological features means our looks, our bones, basically that constitute. Okay? Certain phrenologists are also tried to demonstrate the organic function of brain and enthusiastically establish a correlationship between criminality and structure and function of the brain. This led to the emergence of positive school of criminology. The main exponents of the school were three eminent Italian criminologists, namely Cesare Lombroso, Raffaello Garofalo's theory, or Enrico Ferrer. It is for the reason that this school is also called the Italian school of criminology. Of the several different biological explanations of criminal behaviors, the following are important. They are genetics and criminality, constitutional interactionist view, that is Wilson and Herenston. Lombroso. Lombroso is often referred to as the pioneer of the positive school or the Italian school of criminology. He was considered also the father of modern criminology, as he emphasized biological causes and correlates of crime and set in motion a viewpoint that remains in more sophisticated versions prevalent even today. He was an Italian psychiatrist who was a physician in the army. Based on his observation, he published a book titled The Criminal Man. It was first published in the year 1876. Recent edition was in 1911. He adopted an objective and empirical study of criminals through his anthropological experiments. After an intensive study of physical characteristics of his patients, remember he was a doctor in the army, and later on the criminals, he came to a definite conclusion that criminals were physically inferior in the standard of growth and therefore developed a tendency for inferior act. This was what he commented on analyzing his patients. So the traits between the non-criminals and the criminals. He further generalized that criminals are less sensitive to pain and therefore they have little regard for sufferings of others. That why they love to give pain. Criminals what? They give pain. Even a petty theft. If someone takes our favorite pen, so what? We will have some pain. So it's a pain. It's giving pain. So that's why they said that he said that as they don't have pain or they have less pain, so they love to give pain. Lombroso early conception included his belief in the similarity of the criminals could be savages, the insane and epileptic persons, and he believed that criminals could be distinguished from other people on the basis of anatomical odds such as small craniums, big ears and abnormal secondary sexual characteristics. Lombroso also believed, very important, women lacked the initiative to break laws and therefore crime by a woman was a deviation from her basic nature. This was his observation. Genetic inheritance at a later stage, Lombroso himself was convinced of the futility of his theory. So he started searching for more things. The search for obvious physical difference between criminals and non-criminals did not work. So he has to look for something more. This doesn't work. In his later edition of the book, The Criminal Man, he gave more credit to environmental influence, such as the climate and the local laws. So it's now the climate and the local law is responsible for a person to turn criminal. He changes because he is modifying on his theories. He extended his theory on determinism to social as well as economic situation of criminals. His focus shifted to an approach proposing that certain inherited qualities predispose certain people to act in a criminal way. However, such genetic differences would be explained. This is the main thing. How you are going to explain? You need an explanation because people are watching you. People need an answer to what you have said. So here the question is, you give the question and you have to give the answer. And if you give the answer, you have to prove it. This is a common trend today also. Pedigree analysis. An analysis of ancestry done on certain families led many readers to conclude that a propensity or crime was inherited. But such analysis failed to separate the effect of genetics and environment. So where is the genetics and where is environment if I am inheriting everything? So this is remarkably contemporary examples of crime that runs in family do little to resolve the question. Now we talk about genetic anomalies. Another explanation given to support the theory of hereditary criminality is genetic anomaly, such as an extra chromosome that might lead to mental retardation or pathological behavior. Sometime before research seemed to implicate one particular genetic abnormality as a possible cause of some cases of antisocial or criminal behavior. Sampling of the genetic characteristics of men in prison in the United States, Australia, Great Britain showed that small percentage of these men, but a significantly greater percentage in the general population, had an extra Y chromosome. So here the genetic facts, that means a super male, if we talk about those people who are having one extra Y chromosome. So when they surveyed the prison, they said yes, in prison there were criminals, there were convicts who had this extra Y chromosome. But if we compare it with the local population or a population outside the prison, those who are not criminals, they also do have. So how this theory you are going to establish? So if I explain how this works, this is a normal person has 46 chromosomes, that is 22 pairs of chromosome, or we call it regular chromosomes or autosomes, and 2 sex chromosomes, that is 1 pair of sex chromosome. In female, both the sex chromosomes are XX chromosome, and in male they have X and Y chromosome. When the sperm fertilizes the ovum, the zygote receives a X from the mother and either a X or a Y from the father, making a pair of sex chromosome, XX for female and XY for male. As the zygote begins its cell division, a chromosomal abnormality may occur. Instead of producing 2 rows of 23 each, the cell division may leave an extra X or extra Y chromosome in one of the row. The aberrant XYY pattern, which was first identified in Great Britain, seems to produce men who are average in height, below average in IQ, and possibly aggressive and antisocial in behavior. Since this Y chromosome determines maleness, the idea developed that the extra Y chromosome constituted supermale. From here the term supermale comes. A person more aggressive and therefore potentially criminal. This is the theory finally given, XYY. If this is true, then the incidence of XYY abnormalities should be somewhat higher in the prison population. Obviously, if they are criminal, they should be in the prisons. And this did appear to be the case. The rate has also been found to be slightly higher among institutionalized mental retarded men. However, as research continued, these findings were largely refuted. They have no relation. Even if a relationship between XYY chromosome makeup and conviction for crime be clearly demonstrated, both theoretically and practical questions would remain. For example, how does heredity interact with the environment to produce antisocial behavior? Explain me. Genetically, okay, then environmentally? Genetically we are proving it, XYY, but how you can link it with environment? Should a criminal be punished as severely if he has a chromosomal abnormality? Is it's his fault, the person's fault? This abnormality is not his fault and he should not be punished for it. In several murder trials, the defendant was acquitted or even given a lesser sentence because of an XYY chromosome abnormality. There are evidences. William Sheldon, a different approach to crime causation but one still linked to the biological determinants, is through a typological of body physics. A typology is descriptive system in which all peoples are classified into limited set of categories. The person's type supposedly describes a central or overriding characteristics of all aspects of individual life. William H. Sheldon, a professor in Columbia University, tried to establish a relationship between body structure and behavior. He identified 3 basic dimensions of body build. He developed his ideas from the fact that life begins in the embryo, which is made up of 3 different tissue layers, namely an inner layer or endoderm, a middle layer or mesoderm, and an outer layer or ectoderm. He correlated facts from embryology and the physiology of genetic development. He pointed out that physiologically the endoderm gives rise to the development of viscera. The mesoderm gives rise to bones, muscles and the tendons of the motor organ system, and the ectoderm to connecting tissues of nervous system, skin and related appendages. He observed that a person's physical structure may be dominated by the basic characteristics of any of these three layers in varying degrees. The variation in the body build may lead to the following three types of physical structure. Endomorphic structure. The person's high in endomorph is soft, round and overweight. They are persons with fatty or bulky body having short tapering limbs, small bones, soft and smooth skin and usually of a mild temperament and comfortable person. Persons with mesomorphic structure. Here the physique is hard and muscled and like athlete. The mesomorphic body is strong and tough. These persons are strongly built with prominent muscles and bones and connective tissues. Thus, they have hairy chest and large wrist and hand. These persons are temperamentally serious, active, dynamic, often assertive and behave aggressively. Ectomorphic structure. The third variable is characterized by a flat chest, a long thin body and a little in way of muscular development. These persons are constitutionally lean and fragile with delicate body, small face, sharp nose and fine hair. They are sensitive by temperament and avoid crowds. Further, Sheldon asserted that these physical structures were directly related to the temperament of the person who commits crime. Thus, according to him, endomorphics are moody and accommodative by temperament, while the mesomorphics had a rigid and somewhat serious temperament. The ectomorphics, on account of their delicate physical build up, are often shaky in their decisions and are short-tempered. From a comparison of around 200 delinquents and 200 non-delinquents, Sheldon concluded that the mesomorphic physique was more likely to manifest criminal behaviors, that are, aggressiveness of the mesomorphs along with lack of inhibitory controls contributed to criminality. Sheldon did not propose that a mesomorphic physique was sufficient for crime, nor did he neglect the environment as an explanation. But he wished to advance recognition of the role of biological determinants that he felt were being neglected by criminologists at the time. Constitutional interactionist view. Wilson and Henston. Two social scientists at Harvard University, James Wilson and Richard J. Henston, denied the existence of one gene that causes criminal behavior. Clearly, outrightly said no. But they do conclude that some people have a predisposition towards crime if they don't go in their direction. The book Crime and Human Nature proposed three factors that contribute to crime, that is, social environment. Broad societal values are often neglected as explanation, but these scholars believe that the shift in the culture of the society valuing restraint and discipline to more recent me first orientation has exerted great influence at the level of the individual and contributed to the skyrocketing crime rate. Family relationship. This is the second factor. Parents who are uncaring, inconsistent in the treatment of their children or unskilled in dispensing rewards and punishment contribute to the eventual criminal behavior of their child. That a child comes from a broken home or has only a single parent is, they find, not particularly influential. Rather, it is the parents failing to teach children the consequence of their action. Now we look the biological makeup. It is the determinant at the most controversial. Among the specific qualities that they see as at least partly hereditary and as influential are gender intelligence, impulsiveness, and body type. Gender as a correlate of criminal behavior is so obvious that its significance is often disregarded. It is a well-known fact that more men than women are repeated law offenders. Throughout all countries where records are kept and maintained, men are arrested anywhere from 5 times to 50 times as often as women, if we compare. Whether this gender difference is in criminal arrest results from hereditary or socialization is impossible to say. You cannot distinguish because these two factors inextricably mixed. Intelligence. Wilson and Hernsten detailed review of extreme research led to the conclusion that criminals have an average IQ of 92. About 8 points below the mean for the entire population. And they believe this low IQ means that criminals cannot think past some time horizons or maybe cannot understand society's rule or the consequences of their actions. Impulsiveness. These researchers note that criminals may also be characterized as impulsive. They have a short fuse. Their criminal act often show little planning and they are less able to delay gratification than most other people. Such deviant behavior appears early. Often it is evident before age of 8. Body type. The last of the biologically determined factor that makes men more likely to be offenders is an athletic, mesomorphic body physique. Most of the research on which Williamson and Hernsten based the conclusion come from the studies done way back, say in 50s of the previous century by William Sheldon and others. Biological theory states that people commit crimes because of genetic, biochemical or neurological deficiencies. There was such a time that a person whom society deemed as ugly was considered as a potential criminal and was locked up for the betterment of the society. Biological theories are necessarily part of a multiple factor approach to criminal behavior, that is, the presence of certain biological factors may increase the likelihood but not determine absolutely that an individual will engage in criminal behaviors. These factors generate criminal behaviors when they interact with psychological or social factors. Biological theories have evolved significantly with advance in our theoretical understanding of human behavior and in our technological capabilities of measuring human biological characteristics and processes. Whereas earliest attempts to understand the relationship between biological and behavior focus on the outwardly observable, modern efforts are looking inward to the chemical and structural foundation of body. Contemporary biological theories also recognize the interactive relationship between internal biological events and external sociological events. Moreover, increasing awareness of the complex interrelationship among our environment, our biology and our behavior is contributing to the development of a rich and promising epistemology of criminal behavior. With all these important information here, we come to the end of today's lecture. Do keep in mind what we had discussed today. It is Professor Devashish Bose signing off for now. If you want to learn more and enhance your knowledge, you may log on to our website for MCQs, quizzes, LOR at www.cec.nic.in. Thank you and goodbye.